Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to this month's community call, whether you're watching this live or as maybe many of you tend to treat our call as somewhat of a podcast and you tend to listen to a topic a little bit later in the day. That's great. I just want to say thank you from behalf of all of us in the community for your continued support and your interest in learning and growing and expanding your businesses. I think so much has happened and continues to happen since we were last together in the January call. And I'm sure it's not just me that hears the buzz and seeing the buzz that's swirling around, business applications or Dynamics 365. And I'm as excited and as bullish as I've ever been. So in case you missed the January call, you could always listen to the archive event. The link is on our Yammer page. It's also out on our YouTube channel. So let us know if you don't know where that is, but all the links on the far right of the Yammer page. But during that call, I had showed off the Partner Playbook, which was a demo tool for you in terms of demonstrating Dynamics 365 financials. And then Asaf shared guidance on how to shortcut your efforts to getting IP and your services, packaged up and promoted on AppSource. So just remember, if you missed that call in January, to go and listen to it if those topics are of interest to you. For this month, I just want to do a few quick updates around the community. And then, as you saw on the title slide, we've got a couple of different speakers to drive some of the conversations around Azure consumption and how do I grow my business beyond just the core of what I'm good at, perhaps in ERP and CRM with Dynamics 365, but how do we grow this recurring business on Microsoft Azure? So we've got Barb Borman, and then we've got Jim McGraw teed up with a partner showcase to talk about what they're doing at their organization. And then I'll go through a poll slide as I've done for the last few months and in between speakers, and then we'll wrap up with some closing remarks. So again, as always, please let us know, ways in which we could improve these calls. I always take to heart the impact that we're making, as I know the investment it is, even for just 1 hour of your day and what it takes to sit and listen to us present. Again, our team drives really hard to think about topics that are relevant to you. And again, last month we asked you during the poll, 78% of you said, yeah, this is achieving our goal, so it's worth our time. It's great. So thank you so much for participating in that. And again, as always, if there's ways in which we can improve our editorial content, let us know. I mentioned this last month, there was a big investment on our side to align all of the business groups within Microsoft to have a unified experience, and we just want to make sure you spread the word. Our Yammer page is extremely full of resources. For me, I always found Yammer to be kind of a nuisance, and it was about 6 months ago that it is my own epiphany that I realized all the questions that I had around business applications or Dynamics 365 were already asked, and all I needed to do was go to the Yammer page and do a search, and I'd find all the dialogues that had happened prior to the question I was looking for. So again, make sure you subscribe. If you go out to the yammer.com/MSUS partner, I'm sure most of you have been there because that's how you got the link to register. And then do a search on business applications, so make sure you subscribe to that. Again, I know we've got an active, I think, 1,300 members of that community. And with every channel, if you will, again, with Dynamics or business applications, we also have a web page or a blog post. We try to do at least one post as a follow-up to every call that we do about a week later. So make sure you check out that. And then what I wanted to share with you also is some of the cross-team collaboration that's happening across Microsoft. And so while so many of you are here today because you're focused on business applications, right, our Dynamics 365 portfolio, but many of you have businesses that bleed into other areas, other focus areas of Microsoft. And I know in the partners that I manage and work with, they always say, well, where do I go find out more? How do I learn more about these other areas that I need support in? And so just like the transformation that's happened with business applications, all the other segments such as apps and infrastructure, open source, data and AI, and then the modern workplace, those channels have followed the same suit. So again, they have their Yammer page, and they've got a blog post, and then as I build out this slide, you'll see here, they all have their community calls. So if you're interested in another area, again, we're going to talk about Azure today, but if you've got questions or you want to kind of see the trends and the insights around apps and infrastructure, attend or at least subscribe to their Yammer page. And again, I know in the past I used to think of it as, man, I've got a few hours in the day. I don't have time to have that Facebook experience for work. But I find that the conversations and the dialogues that are happening here real time by your peers can be helpful. And again, it's across all those segments. So you see, for us, we have the second Tuesday of every month. We've got apps and infrastructure the third Friday. And again, you've got the vanity URLs that you guys can see in order to register. And just like you can for the business applications calls, you can register for multiple calls now, so you don't have to go one by one. And then I'll wrap up on the kind of the items around just housekeeping. We were talking as a team, and just to drive more attendance and more involvement from our channel, we thought it'd be helpful if we published a calendar of editorial, I guess an editorial calendar for you so that you have a sense of what's upcoming in the next few months. So obviously today it's February 13th. We're going to talk through some of the conversations around how do I increase my billed revenue around Microsoft Azure. We've got two guest speakers teed up around thinking about cryptocurrency and what that can mean for a Dynamics 365. So again, if I'm bullish and excited to meet those individuals and hear what they have to say, but these are experts at Microsoft that are having dialogues, and so can attend or join us on March 13th, and then you can see the subsequent dates. We certainly have reserved the right to change this if there's something more pressing. We've got some other product groups that are sort of vying to get into our calendar. We've got some emails from some other organizations outside of Microsoft. So we as a team meet on a monthly basis to kind of suss out what makes sense. And but for now, I've posted it out onto the Yammer page so you can see what's upcoming. That's all I have for the intros. I just wanted to warm up the audience like any good basic comedian can do, and then I'm going to present it to or pass the controls to our main presenters. First, I want to introduce Barb. Barb, you have the floor, as they say.
All right. Thanks, Craig. Can you hear me okay?
Excellent. Yes, we can.
All right. I'm going to take over as presenter. And what I'm going to do today, kind of in the very beginning here, I'm going to talk some time about some of the Azure services that are available to you as partners to help expand your Dynamics 365 offerings. As Craig kind of mentioned, our goal is to help you increase your monthly recurring revenue stream and your integration with your customers so you have a stronger relationship with them. You're going deeper into their business and helping them out. So this is going to be a very quick and high-level overview of these services, and I'm going to point you to a couple of recordings in which we have deeper demos of the solutions and a little bit more information on them. I'll show you a quick couple of demos today on data export service and virtual entities, but again, this is going to be real high-level. I'm squeezing into like 15-20 minutes, something that we did in 2 one-hour sessions. So hopefully this is just going to whet your appetite and get you excited about some of these offerings that we have. If you're not aware of them, maybe you were aware of them but didn't think of them in this aspect. So that's really kind of our goal today. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A window today during my presentation or throughout the whole presentation today, or you could always post them in our Business Apps Yammer group, and we will get to them there, like if you have questions on any of these services that I'm going to talk about. All right, the first thing that I'm going to talk about, probably what I think is the easiest services to add on, is backup and storage. So you can now back up your Dynamics 365 instance with version 9 to Azure. One quick note that it's not like right in the admin console to choose, hey, I want to back up to Azure, but you do have to script that using PowerShell or REST APIs. Again, I'll refer you to the recordings that we went into a little bit more detail on that. Secondly, looking at storing any attachments into Azure. There is an app in AppSource called Attachment Management that you can search for and find and download into your solution, and it will allow you to very quickly and easily attach notes and emails into Azure Blob Storage so that you're not consuming your dynamic storage. A lot of customers, as they look and utilize the solution for years, find that the majority of their storage is that, and of course we can do that much more cost effectively inside of Azure, and it will look just the same to those end users. As they click on it, it will come up just like it would have been stored inside of there. Next, I'm going to talk about data export services. Data export services, it's an add-on service for Dynamics 365 Online again, so something that you can find inside of AppSource. And it adds the ability to replicate sales, service, and marketing data to a SQL store in a customer-owned Azure subscription. By using this add-on, it's going to really simplify the technical and administrative complexity of deploying and managing a data export solution for you as the partner and the customers. You'll be up and running in a matter of a few minutes and able to export data into Azure. The data in the SQL database will be updated when it syncs with Dynamics 365, which is in near real time. And again, the solution is an app source that you can download for free. There's going to be a wizard that will walk you through the installation of the solution right into Dynamics 365. So it's a very pain-free process. Next, I wanted to talk about virtual entities. This is also something new that came out with our July update version 9. And virtual entities allows you to read data from an external data source. In my demo that I'm going to do today, I have an e-commerce data store in Azure SQL database that I want to be surfaced up inside of Dynamics 365. And when the end user requests that information, it's going to come up inside of there. So the concept of pulling in an external database, whether it be ERP or some other application, is what we're going to be talking about with virtual entities. It is set up as a custom entity, and then we just check a box that says this is a virtual entity, and you have to set up an OData connection to the data. So we set up a web service also in Azure that is our OData connection. The data looks just like regular information to the end user, and you can set up forms just like a standard entity. So I will walk through a quick demo on that. All right, so moving on to some of the additional Azure services, you could utilize Azure services like Event Hub and Stream Analytics for the data that you have inside of social engagement. So maybe you're already using and pushing information from social engagement to Dynamics and using it to create a lead or a case, but you can actually expand that farther and utilize the Azure services available like machine learning. We do have some built-in AI components being used inside social engagement already, like intention analysis, but they're not open for you to modify. So if you want to do something different with the data and utilize the AI services inside of Azure, then you can use the Event Hub and the Stream Analytics to surface up that data for you. We can also utilize Azure Services with the Connected Field Service app. Again, this is available in AppSource. I have a hyperlink in the presentation that will get out to you, but if you just type in Connected Field Services, that is something that you will see popping up right inside of AppSource. Again, it's the concept being that you have IoT data that we're going to put into Azure that you can monitor and make decisions on regarding customer service, giving the customer that ability to try and troubleshoot and resolve issues remotely or automatically dispatch a technician before the customer is even aware of the issue. So although the Connected Field Service app is free, you're going to need an Azure subscription, and we'll be utilizing services like the IoT Hub, streaming analytics, probably some storage too, to kind of host all of that information. And again, that's kind of where that Azure Services come in, is gather that IoT data, analyze it, and then do some sort of something with that, have a customer service agent try and remotely troubleshoot it, or maybe dispatch a technician before that customer, again, is even aware of their issues. So that is Connected Field Services. Lastly, we have Azure Aware Dynamic Plugins, so that just by registering that plugin and selecting Azure and the connection string, you don't need to have any code to set up, so a lot easier than maybe some of the other plugins you're using. From there, you can do whatever you want with that data, attach it to a queue or send it to Power BI for some reporting. We also have a Logic Apps connector that you can take advantage of if you're utilizing Logic Apps. Just a quick note on Logic Apps, that is targeted more towards the IT pro and the developer as opposed to Microsoft Flow. So with Logic Apps, you can add code. It gives you a lot more options. Think of Microsoft Flow is targeted more towards that power user, with Flow delivered as a software as a service. The underlying technologies are the same, and we're getting to the point where we can turn a Flow into a Logic app, but that's kind of, we get that question a lot, the difference between the two. So think of Logic Apps as something that you as a partner would do and develop, whereas Flow is something that you would teach the customers how to do and create for those power users. We could absolutely use bots created with the Azure Bot Service to assist with the customer service transformations again. So having, if someone is on a portal and they're doing click to chat, we could have a bot that we've created and hosted in Azure Services to answer those first couple of questions. Again, trying to offer a less expensive way to have your customers give customer service support to their customers. And of course, we can use the other services in Cortana Intelligence Suite, like the cognitive services or machine learning services, to help build AI into your Dynamics 365 solution. If we look at the gamut of these that I've kind of really gone over at the high level, just using the storage and attachments is very simple and easy, and the backup down to AI is going to be a much more complex product to put out there. When we look at artificial intelligence, we want to make sure that we're doing it for the right reasons, that we're taking into account bias in our data. It's not something we can just create some machine learning and leave it be. We need to go back and work with the customers to double check that the experiments are still giving a positive result. So certainly something that I would expect a lot more questions on in regards to AI, but again, we're here to help you guys build up solutions around that. All right, with that, I am going to switch over and share my desktop and do a couple of demos. And Craig, if you would be so kind as to let me know when my screen is showing up.
Yeah, you bet. It's loading and you are live.
All right, excellent. So I'm going to start off on AppSource here. As I mentioned, a couple of the different solutions, the data export service, attachment management, Connected Field Service, those are all available for you as partners inside of AppSource. And we'll have really good information down here. A lot of the products will have little quick videos so you can learn about them, 2 to 3 minutes. We'll have a lot of documentation down here. And again, you just click on the Get It Now, and there's a nice wizard that'll walk you through. You fill out some of your contact information. You're going to let it know which Dynamics 365 tenant you want to deploy it to. You do have to have global admin rights or it won't let you do it. But once you get that all set up, it'll walk you through, and then it'll bring you right back into your Dynamics 365 admin console, and you will see that that solution, the installation is pending. So after a couple of refreshes, you're going to have the solution installed, and you can start working with it. And of course, I've been waiting too long, and I need to log back in. Let me see if all of my, let me see if I can just refresh it here. And I don't remember. And I think it's this week, we're going to be doing on a different series of what you should do for backups for all of your demos in case this exact same thing happens. So we'll see how quickly I can recover from this, which makes me think a lot of my other ones are not set either. So you know what, Craig, we might, oh, here we go. So let me see if this is going to come back up for me. Let's see if we can recover on this. All right, so let's see if we can walk through, and we'll see if the rest of my stuff is still up to date. But what I wanted to showcase here was the concept of the data export services. So I'm in my accounts, and I have all of my account names and all of my information right here, and what I'm going to showcase is I've set up a data export service to export my accounts into a SQL Azure database, and I'm going to show how that is going to change. So now I've moved over to my SQL database that I have set up in Azure using my data export services. And I have pulled together a quick query that I am just listing all of the names from my account. I'm going to run this and see if I am still logged in. So we can see the names of all of ours. And so I'm going to change this AdventureWorks Corporation. I'm going to go back over here. I got editable grids turned on. So I'm just going to take away the word corporation from that. And we're going to let that sit for a second, and let me walk you through what the data export profiles looks like. So to get to data export, I just click on settings, and there's my data export. We can see that you are going to set up multiple profiles if you want to. This one is called Sales to Azure because I'm taking the sales data, namely the account table, and exporting that off. When I actually click on that profile, you can see I get all the standard information, the Key Vault URL that we're using to connect securely, the successes, how many, what I have duplicated over into Azure. And then just briefly wanted to walk you through what it looks like to set up a new profile. You're going to name that. You got to set up that Key Vault URL. We do have a nice PowerShell script here if you need some help setting that up. You are just going to select your entities and relationships, and that's pretty much all that you need to do to get this data export profile set up. So let's go over here again to our SQL database, and we're going to run our query. And hopefully it comes back, and you can see that we have removed the word corporation. So now in pretty near real time, we have updated our database inside of SQL. So that's a real high level how the data export works. All right, the other thing I wanted to showcase real quickly is virtual entities. So kind of the reverse with virtual entities is I have data outside Dynamics 365 that I want to surface inside of Dynamics and being able to kind of work with that data. So we created a Azure database that we called e-commerce, and you can see here I just have some basic standard information, my order number, how much my order is, the status of my order. So this is my SQL database that I want to surface up inside of Dynamics. So I'm going to come over here back into my Dynamics tenant again. And as I mentioned before, it's a new custom entity that we set up to do a virtual entity, and so that's called e-commerce orders. And again, it's very straightforward. It looks like just any other data that you would see inside of Dynamics. You can set up forms. You can manipulate the data. So it's going to be just like any data that your end users are used to seeing in there, but it is being surfaced up, it is being just brought into it. So when Dynamics does a call for this data, there's just like a placeholder saying, hey, you need to go out and get this data from that external data source, which in our case here is this SQL, the SQL database. All right, so let's go ahead and make a change to this database. So we are going to go ahead and change our order down to $2,000. They took an item off there. And let's make this shipped. I'm going to save that and hope my connection is still, and of course my connection has failed. So let me try and log in again. We'll see if we can do this quickly. All right. All right. We're going to, let's just give up on that and trust me. When I did this 15 times beforehand, it does work. I'm going to blame this one on Craig for talking too long and letting my, my database time out. I'm just kidding you, Craig. With that, let me switch back over to my resources. Alrighty. And so as I mentioned, really a high level 15, 20 minutes of something that we've covered in kind of two separate sessions. So I'm going to refer you back to those webinars that you can watch and get a little bit more detail on each one of those kind of items that I talked about real quickly. And then I threw some more documentation on how to set up some virtual entities. All right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Craig.
So does that mean I get to talk more again, Barb?
Yeah. Yep. Now you can talk as much as you want.
Got it. Hey, you know what's great about these events and these community calls is you've got a room full, as I look at the roster, right? We've got a room full of people who are demo jockeys just like us, and so we get it. The demo demons act out all the time. But ultimately, when you think about the purpose of these calls, it's just to get you guys thinking, again, just some ideas and some possibilities instead of Microsoft account managers saying, hey, go sell some more Azure, whatever that means, right? Right. Barb gave some great examples, I think, of what you can do beyond our traditional kind of business opportunities. So as I kind of tee up the next section, I think, Barb, you were going to help me with the polling slide, right? We kind of gave a little bit of our minds a break from one section to the next.
Yep, I'm asking it now, so hopefully you guys should see the polling questions showing up in your Q&A window.
Awesome. So remind me of that question that we posed for them.
Okay, the question is, on the January community call, we shared insights on how to publish your apps and IP on AppSource. So our question out to you, partners, is have you begun that process yet?
Awesome. So we made it really simple, right? I think it was just a yes or no answer. So cool. We'll move on, and I'm going to tee this up. I'm really excited about the next part of the presentation. And again, just as I told you earlier, we put so much effort and energy into thinking about how do we drive just change and give you guys some ideas and thoughts. And I know so much of our tech community call is around technology. So when we see some of the geek stuff that Barb just showed, that's great. But we also thought from a well-rounded or a more well-rounded experience is not just having Microsoft speakers come and present to you, but what about some of your peers and what they're doing? And so what I'd like to do next is I'm going to invite one of our team members, Jim McGraw, who's a partner technology architect on the OCP team. And he's going to have some dialogue with one of the partners that he's worked with over the years and what they're doing around Azure consumption. So with that, Jim, you're unmuted, and I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Craig, and it's great to be here. And I'm really thrilled actually today to be here with Tom Rose as well, who's Chief Marketing Officer in Nasuni. Just by way of introduction, Nasuni is a partner that we've looked at quite extensively in the AEC space and some other streaming media spaces for large file storage. And I think with that, we'll actually sort of go into an interview type approach with Tom. Maybe you can give us a bit of background on the company, and we'll go through a few questions and the ways that they're leveraging Microsoft technologies to make a difference for our customer base. So, Tom, I guess we're going to go ahead and see if we can't get you as a participating member of the conversation here. Can we just run an audio check real quick and make sure you're on?
And I think we need to just have him on the Skype part, Jim. Just unmute himself. I can't seem to unmute him.
Yeah, I'm running into the same issue on my end here, Craig. And there we go. Tom, looks like you're unmuted.
Hey, I unmuted myself. I just took over. Can you hear me okay?
That's a good. I love a good take charge attitude, man. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say first of all, thanks for joining us. You're the first partner that we've actually sort of put through the paces along these lines, and we thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk about how Nasuni's sort of approaching the market, how you guys are leveraging Microsoft technology in order to make a difference for the customer community and that sort of thing. So maybe if you want to just take a second, introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Nasuni, and then we'll go into sort of an open conversational format from there.
Yeah, absolutely, Jim. Thanks. Really appreciate the opportunity to be on, and I won't feel any pressure knowing that I'm the first outside vendor to be on this. So hopefully I won't be the last. So Nasuni, so we were named Microsoft's Global Azure ISV Partner of the Year for 2017, for your fiscal year 2017. And the reason why we won that is because we're driving so much Azure consumption around Azure Blob Storage. So we've built the first global file system that was designed to live in the Azure cloud. It actually scales inside Azure Object Storage. So it doesn't have the limitations of a lot of the traditional file systems that have had to live on a network attached storage device or a file server. So those are kind of controller bound file systems, and therefore they have limits on how many files you can store, how big the files are. But more importantly, so that's really addressing this NAS consolidation or remote and branch office file server consolidation use case. But more importantly, there's every enterprise that has more than one location where they need to share files has found that it's just really very difficult to do that in today's traditional storage approaches. You have a file server or a network attached storage device sitting in one office, and then you have to replicate it to another office. You need file transfer software. You got to back it up in both locations. You got to synchronize those files. What about archive? What about disaster recovery if one of the sites goes out? So you have all these challenges of collaboration in a multi-site, multi-office environment. And suddenly, if you have a global file system like Nasuni sitting inside Azure, all those problems kind of just inherently go away. So we've built this global file system that lives in Azure, but it also extends on-prem and integrates with your Active Directory, your on-prem security infrastructure to look like an ordinary file server on-prem.
Hey, Tom.
So every single
I
go ahead.
A couple of questions for you on that. So I know the way that we've worked together in the past when we were looking for a company that provided this sort of thing was really focused on the AEC space, given some of the areas that we had overlap in. But I know that Nasuni actually offers a lot more than that. So maybe you could talk about maybe the types of customers that are selecting Azure and Nasuni in a combo, and if you're
Absolutely.
seeing the trends or the types of partners that you would work with.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think I heard you in the introduction mention that architecture, engineering, and construction was kind of where we cut our teeth. It's kind of where we came to market. And we have, I think, probably over 80 customers now just in that one industry. And a lot of it's for the reasons you just mentioned, that these are the kind of firms that have to share large design files like AutoCAD or Revit, business information models. They have to share them across lots of locations. And so instantly now the attractiveness of having all these files stored in Azure Object Storage, and then have every location have a Nasuni edge appliance, whether it's a virtual edge appliance or a piece of hardware that caches only the active files to provide that high performance access to the files, is perfect for them. Because if you're an architect or an engineer, you want high performance access to these files, whether you're on site, whether you're at a job site, or whether you're in a branch office. And we provide that. But as you mentioned, it's not only AEC that has these challenges. Really, any kind of enterprise or any company that has multiple locations and has a collaborative workforce has the same challenges. So we're seeing now in manufacturing, and one of our joint customers is Jabil, one of the Fortune 500 manufacturing companies. They have the same challenge where they have, again, large CAD files, Office documents, even Photoshop files from Adobe that need to be shared across many locations. And again, the combination of having the gold copies of all these files live in Azure, but then having them, all the cached copies available and synchronized across all locations with Nasuni is a perfect combination. Another industry we're seeing a lot of traction is in creative agencies. So, for example, Condé Nast, who publishes Vogue and Glamour, any kind of creative agency like that again has designers, illustrators, graphic designers that need to share and collaborate on files across lots of locations, again, has the same challenge. And then we're even seeing, some healthcare. We're seeing, customers like the Field Museum, where they in Chicago, where they have researchers that need to collaborate across multiple locations for DNA and genome research and mapping. They have the same challenges. Under Armour is one of our big customers, and again, the same challenge is being able to share designs for the next shoe or the next clothing apparel or sports apparel or uniform across multiple design teams. All these have the same attributes where they need to share large design files across lots of different locations, and they're choosing Azure and Nasuni as that combination to do that.
Right, so I'm hearing a lot of really interesting sort of a common theme here. You're talking about collaboration, you're talking about sharing, you're talking about secure access to files and that sort of thing. So when we're looking at this, this sounds like sort of reasons why people might be choosing us in some use cases and what have you. But it's sort of interested internally when you're speaking with a prospect here, what type of executive level access are you speaking to? Or is this a sale that's taking place at the C-suite? Is this going through a departmental approach? Are you going through IT? Like sort of
yeah.
What are the ways that you actually actively work accounts?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we're actually seeing a little bit of both, and that's why my job for my team in marketing here at Nasuni is we have to do a lot of persona-based marketing because we're seeing the deal often led by both sides. In the case of Under Armour, it was actually led by the C-level on the marketing side because they were saying, look, we can't get designs to market fast enough. We're all about how to innovate and catch on to the latest trends, and time to market and productivity of our teams is critical. So if we can't get that new shoe design or that new uniform design to market fast, we're losing revenue. And the big challenge for them then was, how do I share these big design files? A lot of it was Adobe creative apps like Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. And by the way, Ulta Beauty, another customer of ours in common on the retail side, having the same challenges. So both Under Armour and Ulta Beauty were both kind of driven by the marketing side. And a lot of other customers, it's driven more by the VP of infrastructure, VP cloud, VP IT, where they're looking for a faster way to deliver high performance file storage to the users at lower cost to the business, and really making their lives easier in IT, because administering network attached storage, NetApps, and EMC isolons, and then all the backup products that go with that, and then replication and snapshot, and then having to build a DR site, all those things are just a lot of cost and complexity for IT. So the message to the IT folks is we're going to make your life easier, a lot lower cost. The message to the line of business is we're going to accelerate your business. We're going to make your teams a lot more productive. And I think when you have both of those folks working together, the deals happen a lot faster.
That's a great point. So our primary audience and the people who dial in on this call on a regular basis are associated with the business application suites that Microsoft develops. So that'd be 365 Ops through GPSL, CRM, those sorts of things.
Sure.
So when we're looking at this, quite often what we find is that this particular group actually sells into the C-suite. We're much more focused on the administrative side. People are making daily decisions that run their business based on the accounting output, based on bills of materials, product designs, inventory consumption, that sort of thing. Could you maybe talk a little bit, to the way that you've worked with this type of partner community in the past, and any kind of specific success stories or things that you found to be productive in going to market in that way?
Yeah, so there's a couple things you mentioned also. I think you mentioning the audience is accustomed to selling on the backs of the applications, and we've actually have a theme for 2018. It's called Follow the Apps. And some of the apps you've mentioned, like with Office 365 or Dynamics, or if those are hosted applications, there might not be a play. But for the applications that are driving big file workloads on-prem, like I mentioned, the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite, applications like CAD, all these apps that are driving big file workloads, those are the ones to chase, because where you see those apps, there's file pain. And and typically those kinds of apps are also collaborative apps where you've got to have these teams use them across sites. So we're kind of following that app pain as we go to market. Partners like CDW, SHI have been really instrumental in helping us navigate and find that pain. And then one thing that's pretty cool is once we win one of these customers, Microsoft has this one-slide format that kind of has a really pretty picture of the customer, and then kind of a little capsule on why they chose Azure and Nasuni together. We've put together now about 25 of these one-slides that allow our partners like SHI and CDW and our own sales team, working with Microsoft Field, to go out and show these proof points of customers that are succeeding with us, in the field. And they're very visual, they're very graphical, and they're very compelling, because it tells the story of why Azure, with its built-in geo-redundancy, so you don't need DR anymore. You've got copies in multiple places. And then with Nasuni, with our global file system sitting inside Azure, you're never running out of space anymore. You have high-performance access. We're tying in with Active Directory on-prem, so you still access files the way you always have through AD authentication. The other cool thing that we do, which I think we're bringing out to light now, is when we store files in the Azure cloud, in the Azure Object Storage, we encrypt all the data with customer-controlled keys. So one thing you hear from customers a lot is, geez, I don't trust my data in the cloud. How do I know it's not going to be looked at by others? Well, with Nasuni and Azure, it can't be, because before, once a file is created through one of our appliances, before we send it to the Azure Object Store blob storage, we encrypt it with a key that the customer owns and controls. So when that data goes into Azure, we can't see it. Microsoft can't see it. It's invisible. So nobody can crack that. So and the customer holds those encryption keys. So I think we've thought of a lot of the things that are really needed to make moving files to the cloud a lot less scary. They're not losing security. In fact, they're gaining security. They're not losing performance. They're having greater performance than ever, especially across sites. They're not losing space. They get more space than ever before because it's infinite. They're not losing backup. They're getting actually better backup, because our file system versions constantly every change to every file. So the best backup is no backup, because now they have continuous versioning. They can roll back to any point. So I think what we're doing together, Azure and Nasuni, we're really helping customers reimagine, how they're building file infrastructure with this, for the modern cloud era. And it's better than before at lower cost, and it's easier to manage for IT.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the things that we're always trying to do is we're trying to foster, in a healthy way, interaction in our partner ecosystem. Because it's really, what we look at, and when we look at holistically across this partner community, is sort of this holistic approach where we've got complementary product offerings, each one developed by different partners. But we hear things like, we hear positives and negatives out of that. Obviously it's very difficult for one partner to be all things to all people.
Right.
But at the same time, we also hear from some of our prospects, when we're going to war against Amazon or Oracle or something like that, that they come in with sort of this unified approach and a sales team, and it's all on Oracle paper, SAP paper, Amazon paper, whatever.
Sure.
So maybe we could kind of make this a sort of an interesting question, put you on the spot a little bit. But how do you overcome those sorts of objections? How do you effectively sell, let's say, a Dynamics 365 enterprise partner that's going in and selling some accounting and financial software, but the customer wants this ability to manage large file formats and history? Can you maybe talk a little bit about that collaborative sales process, what you find effective, and maybe we can get a little bit of a conversation going about how we can go to market effectively together as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, that's been one of the best parts of our relationship with Microsoft. For the last year and a half, I would say, and I came into Nasuni about 9-10 months ago, just kind of right as the partnership was really taking off. And I think Microsoft has always been great at embracing partners, and the developer toolkits, the developer tools have always encouraged ISVs to build for the Microsoft platforms first. So Azure was the first platform we supported when it comes to cloud storage. So in many cases, it's the Azure. Before we had the Azure black belts were bringing us into customers as they were listening for these challenges. More and more now, it's a lot of the field reps that we're building relationships with that are bringing us in. And it's not just Nasuni alone. I think you talked about all solutions on one piece of paper. Microsoft has a best-of-breed approach, and I think that's been shown by the webinar we're now running with Microsoft on the 4 pillars of Azure transformation. It's Nasuni for files, it's Palo Alto Networks for network, it's Docker for apps, and it's Rubrik for backup. And when you put all 4 of those together, they're all Azure native solutions. They're all great at what they do, best in class for each of their areas. And we just held this webinar where the 4 of us kind of all showed how we're complementary to each other, and how we're all going in and helping customers solve their problems in each of these 4 pillar areas. So again, I think that's what Microsoft brings to bear that other vendors don't, is having this ecosystem of strong Azure partners that are best in class. And when you put them all together, it's a much more comprehensive solution. And that webinar is actually running live right now. We had I think we had 100 people in the last ones. That was just in the Northeast with CDW. So it's definitely getting resonance. People are reacting to it and they're attending. And again, I think that's what sets Microsoft apart from the other vendors in the space.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Tom. I know we're sort of drawn towards the end here, so I always like to do one sort of fun thing here to put you on the spot. I was going to ask you if you had any, sort of like a really quick word of advice to anybody out here, or if you could tell a clean, quick joke. What do you? I'm
better at the advice. I'm better at the advice, I think. I would just say, I think the combination of Azure and Nasuni is the gift that keeps giving, right? It's the subscription sale. We've aligned our sale on it's a terabyte, per terabyte per year kind of a business model. So we follow very much like the Azure consumption model. So a lot of our customers that I mentioned, like Ulta Beauty, like Cushman & Wakefield, like the Field Museum, like Jabil, they buy and then they keep expanding every year. And so we're seeing like 120% renewal rate when you look at customers that are renewing what they purchased last year and then adding on top of that, because files are always growing. And file storage is always growing. So when you take the time to position Azure and Nasuni together, you're going to see that annuity sale next year, and it's just going to keep on multiplying. So and we're seeing that with a lot of these case studies that I talked about. So that's how I guess I would end it with not a funny joke, but hopefully it's valuable.
Tom, this was extremely valuable. This is Craig. I want to thank you so much for volunteering your time for 30 minutes and just kind of coming in and sharing with the community your experiences. And I'm going to say this to community. Listen, I always appreciate your commitment to business applications. And I think as all of you on the call know, we at Microsoft have gone through our own business transformation, this new structure that we've been aligned to since July, this one commercial partner. It happened because you as a partner have the needs. You want to understand what's happening in the greater Microsoft community. And sure, we could come and present ERP and CRM demos for you, right? We'll continue to do that, but I hope you guys saw the value in what Tom and Jim brought in their interview. Man, this was incredible. Again, our charter is to help you guys uncover the technologies, right, to support the business opportunities that you guys are pursuing. So again, as you think about the call today, with Azure consumption, right, and these revenue opportunities that go beyond just your core of ERP and CRM. And, as I think about next month and the future months that we've got teed up, again, if you're kind of hearing the news out in the market around cryptocurrencies, we've got some folks at Microsoft who we didn't have any idea who are focused on this and think through maybe what are the business opportunities around that. I'm excited to hear what they have to say. And so again, we've got some great content we're excited to share with you. We know you guys know ERP and CRM well. We're trying to get you to think beyond what your core is good at. So with that, I want to thank you all for the time. And thanks so much for the commitment you guys have made. And we'll look forward to seeing you again in March. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, great evening, great morning.